choices and decisions, how decisions can be limiting, and how choices always keep you in that space of infinite possibility. This is something you taught me quite early on, the importance of not making decisions and being aware of how choices can lead to next choices.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's helped me a lot. Just how when we lock in on something, or that in any given moment there's infinite possibility.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you make a decision, well, you've limited that to one or two things.
Yeah, well, see, with a decision, we often will put boundaries and limitations on it. We've decided that this is it. We've decided that this is what we're going to do, or this is what we're not going to do. So we create a points of view on it. And what happens then is, you will do it no matter what, and then you don't want to not do it because you've decided that you've done it. And if you don't do it, then you actually feel like you're making yourself wrong, or that you're not meeting what you've decided you have to do. So decisions are very restrictive. And in our mind, it's like, I have decided, and it doesn't come from a space where a choice is something that you choose and that you can change and choose at will. Because if I said to you, even just the words, Henry, you decided that this is how we're going to do it. And you go, well, no, we had a decision and this is what I've chosen to do now. But I've chosen to do it now, but it doesn't mean we can't change it. But when you use the word decision, this is a decision. And how many times do you hear it? Final decision. The decision is final. So it's like the decision almost creates an end, and you can't do anything else. So then you've got to go out of your way to keep upholding everything to keep the decision real and to keep it right. But if it's not right, how are you ever going to get it right?
Yeah.
And then you don't want to go changing it.
No.
Because then you got to look at yourself. Well, why didn't I get it right the first time?
Yeah, I remember this with the military and working through, these different stages, and sort of early on, but I'd been there a little while, and it was like, this doesn't feel right anymore. And you kind of keep telling yourself, well, it'll get better, because this is what I decided I was going to do and be. I'm going to train for 2 Commando, and that's that. I need to push through and and next will be better. Next week will be better. And there comes a point where it's not better. No. And you go, you know what? This is not for me, and I have to choose something different. But how many times do people make decisions and then continually live in this perpetual state of punishment because that's what they decided? God forbid they change.
Well, that's it. I think the principle of decision is that this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do everything to uphold it for as long as we can, because this is something that I have said is right. But what you've done, you've pretty much said, well, I've decided this for all eternity. Well, have you really decided it, or have you just chosen it? Because with choice comes change. And with that change, what if it creates different choices? So it's the power to choose is very freeing. Whereas the words, and this is where the English language comes into it, what if the word decision is actually to keep us controlled?
Would make sense.
Because if you're controlling something, then you don't actually look outside the box to do anything different. Whereas choose creates other possibilities. Because if you choose something when you're doing it, and if you're doing it and it feels good, then the energy you're putting behind it is more harmonious. And then other possibilities come up. So from that you go, oh, and I could do this and I can add to that. Or you become aware that the choice that you've made doesn't quite feel right. But it just feels so much easier to change your mind or change your choice rather than to change the decision. It's almost like the decision is something that we do formally. It's like a formal decision. And, like, I mean, if you think about any courts or any law courts or something where a decision is made, if a judge makes a decision and it's based on judgment and it doesn't go our way, the energy on judgment is control, force, abuse. To judge is to make a final decision, and you can't. So you're almost creating fixed boundaries that you cannot go behind. And I think with the English language, the word decision is confining, controlling, and limiting. Mm-hmm. Whereas choosing is just very freeing, because what you choose today, you might choose something different tomorrow. Yeah, because I always say, choose something that's fun for you. And because what you choose today is fun for you. Why is it fun for you today, Henry? Oh, well, it just is. I just enjoy doing it. I see you tomorrow and I go, are you still doing that, Henry? You go, no. I go, well, why not? You did it yesterday and it was fun for you yesterday. But it's not fun for me today. So I'm choosing something different. Mm-hmm. Because, see, if you don't choose what's fun for you, who will?
No one.
Because no one really knows what's fun for you. They don't know what state of mind or what place you're in, what environment you're in.
I think what when you sort of shed light on the different choices, it really enabled me to actually choose for me. And it was, you always said, choose for you, choose what feels right. So, you're going through life and you get to this crossroads, what feels right? So just by choosing choice, you're choosing you, and you automatically kind of creating this deeper connection to self.
Yeah.
Rather than just, like you think about, you go to school, high school, make a decision what you're going to study, you study it for however many years, and then that's what you be. The system's designed for decisions.
Yeah.
And when you stop that and you connect to self and you start making choices based on how you feel, well, the experience is just so much more expansive.
Absolutely, and it feels easier because it's easier to make choices.
It is easier to make a choice
than to decide, because you go, oh, this is a big decision. You don't go, this is a big choice. You just go, no, it's just a choice.
Yeah, next.
Yeah, and then it just flows because it's ease. A choice is done with ease, where a decision is hard and difficult.
Well, I remember before I went to the army, I was trying to get into the Air Force as a pilot, and that was a huge process. And I went through all of it, did the math tutoring and yada yada, and spent 2 years trying to do that, be that. And it got to the point where it was like, okay, cool, this is a 13.5-year commitment. I was like, fuck.
That's right. You're going, shit. It's like,
are you kidding?
Because what if you don't like it, then you feel like it's a jail sentence. Like you're locked and committed to something that you're not going to enjoy.
How on earth am I, as a 20-year-old, supposed to commit to the next 13.5 years?
And unfortunately, a lot of people do, because they decided that's what they're going to do, and they're going to stick it out. 13.5 years is a long time in anyone's life, and especially at 20.
Yeah.
So when you got to that stage, what did you do?
I didn't. I just put it all down, and I went back to the gym, back to PTing, and I still sat with it. I still wanted to experience defense. I still wanted to experience army life and that military lifestyle. And so I went back to the drawing board and, okay, well, what else would I like to do? And that's when I come across the direct entry 2 commando scheme. So they take civilians and kind of fast track them through to special forces.
Okay, yeah.
And that was very appealing. And so I started that process. But no, there's probably a year or so where I, just realized, like, okay, well, I don't want to be a pilot. Even in that process, like, I just thought it would be cool to fly jets.
Yeah.
And I realized these guys I was up against were nerds. They were very good at maths. They knew aeroplanes in and out. They were passionate. That's all they wanted to do and be.
Yeah.
I just wanted to fly jets.
Yeah. And shoot people down. Bad guys.
Just go really fast through the sky. Which again was the wrong reasoning. So.
But it's still, though, it highlights the fact that when the ease of choosing something, and then, because with choice you can change your mind at any time. When something doesn't feel right, rather than abusing yourself and sticking it out because it's not right for you, which when people do make a decision, and even to try and get out of it or to change it, or when they go to talk to someone else, it's almost like they've got to justify why they're changing their mind.
We do though, don't we? All the time.
All
We're
the time.
Justifying why we're choosing something different.
Yeah, but you know, if it was, well, if I'm choosing to do this because it's fun for me, and if there's no malicious intent to hurt or harm anyone, then how can people's choices be wrong or bad? You know, life is too short to be functioning from what other people expect from you or want from you. When if you're doing something and you're not happy doing it, you got to go, well, who am I doing this for? Because I'm certainly not doing it for myself. And that's where, you know, we should always allow people to choose. And if people are choosing to do things and they're not deliberately doing it to hurt or harm someone, I mean, there's always elements, but you're looking at they're choosing to do something to, you know, with their career or just in how they live, what they eat, how, you know, where they live, what they live in, what they drive. So it's just a choice. It's not about creating a false reality. They're doing something that brings them some happiness. If it's not fun, it doesn't bring you any happiness, you don't enjoy doing it, you got to ask yourself, well, who am I doing this for? And what's the value of doing this? Because, you know, what happens tomorrow? You get up and, you know, you get run over by a bus. But you know, Henry, he did all his life, he fought his way all the way through, he's stuck with this. He wasn't happy, but, you know, wow, he stuck with it. Good on you, Henry. You stuck with it all these years.
Yeah,
you know?
Why?
That's right. But he wasn't happy.
No, but people... see, okay, up until this year, or maybe last year, I don't know, I'd never finished a book. And that used to drive me mental. I'd start all these great books and I'd never finish one. So then I was like, right, I made this decision, locked in, that if I started a book, I would finish it. And I'm reading this book at the moment, and I'm about halfway through, and I'm like, man,
I don't like this book.
I'm done, I'm struggling. But now it's like this line of, do I quit and fail my promise to myself that I would always finish my books? Because once you start something, it's easy to continue that.
Yeah.
So then next time I'm halfway through a book, it's like, nah, I'm not enjoying it anymore. And then in a relationship, as soon as it gets hard, nah, I'm going to do something else. As soon as the business gets to a sticking point, nah, I'm going to do something else. So it's like, where do you draw the line?
Well, I guess it's, if I mean, with the book that you're reading, if the book, maybe you've got out of the book what you were required to get out of it. Or maybe it was the experience of reading that book and putting some time to that. Now you've experienced it and you're going, you know what? I'm only going to read the books that are interesting, stimulating to me. Because if I'm reading something that I have no interest in, well, what value am I going to get out of this? You know, because you've got to put time into it. And if you're doing something that you don't enjoy doing, are you actually going to get anything out of it anyway? And even if you look in relationship with someone, if the relationship's not working, humanly, we normally go about things in a way to try and ease the separation or the choice to go different ways. It doesn't always work out that way because it involves someone else and how they're going to respond to anything, especially if it's you're choosing to not be in the relationship, then you can't control how they're going to react because we don't know. We might have, but we try to do most of us try to do the best we can to soften the change, make the change easy. But when you try to do that for someone else, you end up making it harder because you can't actually change things for other people. They've got to choose and make their own changes themselves. You can only do it yourself in the best possible way with your own morals that you have. And, you know, but making yourself wrong, say for not reading the book, it's just like torturing yourself. You go, no, I'm going to torture myself. I'm going to read this book right to the end. But you're not going to get anything out of it. Except, geez, that was a boring book. I 4 hours ago, I could have thrown that book away.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so it's really going, well, you know, what's the value in reading this book right through? What if you just ended that book, just put a marker in it, parked the book up, and then went on to read and do something else? What happens if about 3 weeks' time you go, hold on, there was something in that book? Because what if it wasn't the time for you to read that book? Maybe you'd read what you needed to read to get you to a certain point, but something else has to happen in your life before you can read the rest of the book. Choice. I choose to read it, I choose to just park it up. Or I choose to throw it out and bin it. You know, it's choice. You know, it's not beating yourself up, because that's what we do. When we've made a decision, we beat ourselves up, and then afterwards we'll beat ourselves up again because we haven't done it. Because it was a decision. Whereas I'm just choosing it because it's not fun anymore, or choosing to change because this isn't the right time for this. I'm not saying I'm never going to do it. I'm just saying there's a possibility that I might pick it up later, but it's choice. Because if it's not fun and ease for me now and bringing me any joy, happiness, satisfaction, whatever it is that stimulates you, you got to say, well, why am I still doing it? And who am I doing it for? What's the value in it? You know?
It comes a fine line though, doesn't it, when you start making almost like emotional based choices. And I think as men that can be quite detrimental.
Yeah.
You know, we need structure and discipline, and we can't make choices from emotions all the time.
No, well, I mean, look at you. If you were choosing, like, say it was a relationship, and you're changing relationship every day, you got to go, well, hold on, there's something greater than me making these choices every day. There's something else going on with me that, you know, what am I doing to create this? What am I doing to destroy this? You know, I guess is with a relationship, for example, because it involves someone else. You know, you're going to. Most men are. You'll get some that aren't caring and kind, but most men are quite caring and kind about creating the best possible relationship, because we all like to have someone in our lives. So you're going to do the best that you can. And you're not always going to make the perfect choice. There is no perfect choice. You're just going to make the best choice that's available with the information that you have in this time. You know, and over time, if the things that you're choosing just aren't working for you and it involves the other person, then there'll be a stage where you just go, wow, I just can't do this anymore. So then you make that final choice. It's not that we're just making the choice at any whim. You know, you're choosing, but when it involves someone else, those choices are always a little bit more difficult because they have feelings and we don't deliberately going to go out of our way to hurt their feelings.
Cool.
You know, and that's because we're human. But if it's a decision or a choice about something for you personally, like with your career, it's easy to make because it only affects you.
Yes. Except
if you're in a career and you're earning a lot of money for your family and you decide, I don't want to do that career anymore, I want to do something else that I will enjoy, then we go into, well, how's that going to affect the family? You know, we got a standing of living up here because I'm on $200,000 a year, but I'm going to go and choose a job that I'm only on $50,000 a year. I'm going to be happy as, but you know, how does that impact on the family? That's the sort of choice that you don't make overnight. You know, something you might sit down about and go, right, how am I going to ease my way into, this is where I want to be, but how am I going to ease my way into getting to that choice? You know, and it's not a decision because you're not going off, because on that way you might go, I was going to choose this $50,000 job, but I can make $100,000 doing what I was going to do for $50,000 because there's other things now I've become aware of.
Well, that's something else that you taught me early on was what else is possible.
Yeah.
You know, and that's incredibly freeing. And just knowing that it's all possible, you know, especially with things like relationships, and we're so quick to bin it or throw it away or never again or whatever it may be, which is incredibly limiting. And so when you know that all things are possible, you kind of release that fear, that control, that need to whatever, and you can kind of step into that flow and just make choices based on how you're feeling and what feels right, and then you start to align with what's meant for you.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I mean, and that's freeing, and it flows. And as I say, you're not going to make choices that, you know, deliberately go out of the way that hurt someone else. We don't function that way unless you're narcissistic. Then yes, that's like 1% of the population, or maybe even less than 1%. But you know, the choices that we make today will create changes for tomorrow, and some choices are better than others. But if you don't make a choice, the status quo remains. Now, if you were faced with something where you wanted to make a change, but you weren't sure what it was, you just know that you've got to choose something different, you've got to do something differently. If you stay in the status quo, nothing changes.
Yep.
But except everything gets worse. It's like nothing's changing. It's like water that's not flowing. It becomes stagnant, becomes toxic to the point where you have to get out of it, or you have to, because it's unbearable. That's the value. That's the result or the outcome of not choosing something differently, not making any changes. Like the old days, you're married, you decided you're going to stay together for the rest of your life. Well, shit, if you're not happy and you've made this decision and things have changed and you've both gone on different pathways, well, I'm sure reasonable people can sit down and talk about making some choices, some changes, see how it goes. If it doesn't work, well, then the inevitable is you can still go your own ways. It's still choice. Just going on, I'm not going to make any changes because I was running upset in the apple cart. Well, the only person that affects is you.
Yeah.
You're the one that carries the can. You're the one that's upset. You're the one that's you're creating your own toxic environment.
Yep.
And what's toxic in the environment you make it toxic in the body.
Yeah, disease.
Well, the mind just creates it because it's not ease. We've got no ease, so it's creating dis-ease, and that shows up for so many people because they're not choosing for themselves, and it's not choosing from ego or selfishness. It's choosing what feels right for you when it feels right for you, and a decent person's not going to put anyone else down from their choice. They're just going to choose for them because that's what they would like to do. Selfishness comes from ego, but majority of people aren't selfish. Majority of people will do things because, and they're always thinking of other people. But you can't base your choices on other people. You still have to come back to self.
Yep.
Choose what works for me, and then you can invite other people to be part of it.
Yes.
Like with say it was a career change, and you talk to the family and you say, listen, I've been doing this. I did it. I was in the mining industry for 27 years, from 15 to 42. It was 41 going on 42, and I was making a lot of money, like $245,000 a year. Had all the toys, house in the canal, yada yada yada, but I wasn't happy. My body was starting to show me from the inside. I was fit and training, but on the inside I was starting to create blood pressure issues, heart issues, liver issues, anger, frustration, control, because I was doing something that I didn't enjoy doing.
Yep.
And until I made that choice to do something different, I probably wouldn't be here today if I'd stayed where I was.
Yeah, of course.
And so many people, because people would say, well, you decided to do an apprenticeship, you decided to become a supervisor, decided to become a superintendent, you decided to become a manager, you decided this, you decided. No, they were choices, and I got to that stage where I went, wow, this isn't for me. So that's just speaking from my own personal experience. And it wasn't easy. Was it an easy decision or choice? No. But there was a lot of things I had to work my way through to.
Yeah.
And you think about it, but I think being able to talk to people about it, bounce it off people as well. People that aren't going to be too opinionated, they listen, because often you're not looking for an answer, you're just venting, and that's a form of allowing yourself to have your own awareness, so that then you can choose.
Yes.
Because when you're in that pressure cooker, I don't know what to do. You're putting that much pressure on yourself. It feels like you have to make a decision when it could be as simple as, well, what if I just make a couple of small changes, like small choices first, and ease my way into making this bigger choice down the track when the time's right.
Yeah, just go with how you feel, go with the flow.
Yeah. So there you go, choice and decision.
Yes.
One's easy, one is very, very hard.
Yes. Cool. Awesome. Well, that is choices and decisions. If you have any questions, flick them through. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry.